So if there's one big finding from the statistical evidence here, it is that there are three variables that work in concert to create systemic error. And those three errors are the strength of the prosecution's evidence, the quality of the defense, and whether the prosecution turned over exculpatory evidence. That means evidence that it's required under law to give to the defense when that evidence suggests that the defendant is actually innocent. So here's how these three things work together. What we found is that when you look at the strength of the prosecution's evidence, weaker facts were associated with wrongful convictions. Now this goes against all common understandings. You would think if there are weaker facts, they would lead to a near miss. But here they lead to a wrongful conviction. The second piece here is the weaker defense, and this is something we might expect. If I'm a defendant and I have a weaker quality of defense, of course I would lead to a wrongful conviction. It would lead to a wrongful conviction as opposed to a near miss. This third thing, the failure to disclose evidence by the prosecution, if the prosecution doesn't turn over evidence that the defense needs, then the defense can't do its job in trying to lead to the near miss. What we think is going on here from these three is that the prosecution has weaker facts. It is not able to do as thorough an investigation on these facts because it just doesn't have that much to go with. It doesn't turn over the evidence to the defense because it doesn't recognize sometimes what those facts are, and then the defense can't do its job. And really, if you put these three factors together, if you put the weak prosecution facts, if you put the weak defense, and you put the failure to disclose, what you have is a perfect storm of systemic failure in the criminal justice system that leads to the wrongful conviction of an innocent defendant. The takeaway from this study is, first, we need to decide where do we want to put our energies. So if the question is what ends up having a defendant be indicted, then it's a number of the things that we've seen before: eyewitness identification, false confessions, and misconduct by police officers and prosecutors. If, though, the question is, how do we prevent a wrongful conviction once someone ends up being indicted, then it seems to me we have three big factors to be focused on. They are, number one, making sure that the quality of defense is better. Number two, making sure that police and prosecutors are turning over exculpatory evidence. And number three, making sure that weak facts do not end up leading to a prosecution that keeps going forward to trial. The way all three of these relate are under the concept of tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is something that actually all of us engage in every single day. It's that we start to assume something is one way because we have a few facts that we think lead to that. So what happens here in one of these cases, in a wrongful conviction, is the police have one fact about a defendant, and they begin to focus on that defendant and start not paying attention to other facts in the case that suggest that the defendant is innocent. And again, this is not specific to police or prosecutors. We all do this. But that is one of the big problems here. So if we are trying to prevent wrongful convictions, we need to be focused on the strength of the prosecution's facts. We need to be focused on the quality of defense, exculpatory evidence, but then how those lead to tunnel vision that have the professionals in the criminal justice system not looking at other facts that they ought to be paying attention to that would suggest they have the wrong guy. And that as a result, the real criminal, the most dangerous person, is still out there on the streets.